Meeting with the Board of Education to order. We'll begin with an invocation. Ms. Etheridge?
Yes. First of all, I would like to extend our condolences to Dwan. Dwan recently lost her husband, Mike, and we want her to know that our love and prayers are with you during this time of sadness and grief. And remember that there are angels all around. Recognizing the presence of angels around you can feel like walking from the shadows into the warmth of sunshine. Suddenly you feel the nourishment that comes from someone taking the time to look out just for you and you alone.
Okay, our school spotlight this month is on the Currituck High School, and I'd like to call up Principal Javonda Crutch, who will introduce who's going to be in the school spotlight.
Good evening. My name is Javonda Crutch, principal of Currituck County High School. Superintendent Stefanik, board members, I first want to thank you for this spotlight, allowing me to highlight one of our many successful programs at Currituck County High School. In August 2006, Air Force Junior ROTC Unit number 20061 opened its doors with 46 cadets enrolled. Today, the Corps has grown to an impressive 140 strong. Our program is a course where cadets explore the intriguing world of aerospace science and have an opportunity to develop leadership skills. Students use their learned leadership techniques during inspections, drill sessions, team sports, and on field trips to U.S. Air Force and other service installations. Tonight we have with us cadets from our very own unit who will lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance, then briefly share with us how this program has benefited them professionally and personally. Cadet Colonel Ryan Condon, commander of our Air Force Junior ROTC unit, will lead us in the posting of the colors and our pledge.
Detail, forward, march. Colors, post. And if everyone would rise, I'd like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, Dr. Dabney and members of the Currituck County School Board. I am Cadet Colonel Ryan Condon, commanding officer of the AFJROTC unit at Currituck County High School. Our unit is comprised of many young men and women that come from diverse backgrounds. And with these backgrounds, we have many differences that we use the Air Force in 3 core values. And the first one is integrity first, which meaning doing the right thing while no one else is looking. The second one is service before self, and that one is putting team and mission needs first. And third one is excellence in all we do, giving 100% in what we are all involved with. Our cadets are involved in all facets of high school and the community. Last year alone, we performed over 1,500 community hours, or service hours, varying from parking cars at community events, greeting veterans on Veterans Day, posting colors at school and community events, marching, command parades, and cleaning up opportunities around the school and community, and also assisting our school. And I'd like to present Senior Master Sergeant Sweeney.
This program has assisted me in focusing on post-high school career opportunities. Both my parents were in the military prior to my birth, so this program has enlightened me on a lot of opportunities, both with the military and the civilian sector. We do this by going on field trips, participating in summer leadership courses, and visiting military installations and colleges to understand all that's available to us. Now, if we decide to enlist in the military, we enter at a higher pay grade and rank because of our attendance in this program, but there is no active duty service commitment for enrollment in ROTC. Our program's primary goal is to assist us in becoming effective citizens in our school, community, state, country, and in the world. Now to give you Cadet Technical Sergeant Colt Fletcher.
Good evening. I'm Cadet Technical Sergeant Fletcher, and ROTC has been a constant stabilizer in mine and many other cadets in my program's lives. We've had highs and lows, and we always have ROTC to lean on. ROTC teaches us teamwork, responsibility, and well manners that we will use to help the tasks and challenges that we face in life, and we'll also carry on those characteristics throughout the rest of our lives. Thank you.
We're going to present the Air Force Creed. Cadets, attend. Cadets, Air Force Creed. I'm American Airman. I'm the warrior. I answer my nation's call. I'm American Airman. My mission is to fly, fight, and win. I am faithful to a proud heritage, tradition of honor, and legacy of valor. I'm American Airman. Guarding freedom and justice, my nation's sword and shield, its century and avenger. I will defend my country with my life. I'm American Airman. Wingman, leader, warrior. I'll never leave an airman behind. I'll never falter, and I will fail. As you were. Thank you for your time, and are there any questions?
I have a question. How do you get rank in an Air Force ROTC program?
Yes, sir. Everyone comes into the program as like the equivalent of an E1, so it'd be cadet, basic airman. And to achieve rank, there are rank tests and like just other various in the book things that we do, and based on your overall performance too. And to get officer, which we have Daniel. He is a cadet, first lieutenant. Daniel Fox. He's and J.B. Colson. He's also an officer in the program. We during 1 week in the summer, normally in the beginning of June, like as soon as school gets out, we head down to Charleston, South Carolina, and it's a 1 week leadership school. And after passing, like there's classes, rigorous courses, and other various things that they offer. But upon completion, you become an officer, depending on your teacher.
Other questions?
Just keep up the good work.
Right, thank you.
Just proud of y'all.
Thank you.
By the way, my daughter was in the Air Force for 17 years. She was a master sergeant. So,
Sarah, thank you for her service.
will do.
Thank you.
Okay. I would like each one of the cadets to come up, introduce yourself, speak into the microphone there, so everybody watching on TV can see you.
Cadet Senior Master Sergeant Jake Sweeney.
Cadet Master Sergeant Brian McGuire.
Cadet First Lieutenant Daniel Fox.
Cadet Staff Sergeant Matthew Beaumont.
Cadet Staff Sergeant Colin Anderson.
Cadet First Lieutenant Colson.
Must be a new rank.
Is that it?
And Cadet Technical Sergeant Fletcher.
And Mr. Grimes, would you come up and introduce yourself? I always call you General, but I don't know what actual rank you are.
Sir, that is a very big compliment, but I cannot take that title. I'm Lieutenant Colonel retired Keith Grimes of the United States Air Force, 22 and a half years, and I am of active duty, over 30 years of combined service time with ROTC. And I am the Senior Aerospace Science Instructor at Currituck County High School. I'm proud to serve and have served our country.
Woo, Well, I am proud to say that thank you for your service, but also for these young men, because it's very obvious that you're doing your job.
And ma'am, this is just a portion of our unit.
Okay.
Couldn't get them all here tonight because of some of the challenges we've had with the weather and everything and trying to get them in. But this is just what we do every day. If you come to our classes, and you're welcome to come by anytime, they open up just like that,
I will.
every one of them. Please do. Please do. And we'll be happy to see you and have you there. Okay? Have a nice one.
And the last time they were here, they taught us how to say the Pledge of Allegiance correctly.
I'd like to compliment Mr. Grimes not only on what he does with their program, but his involvement with the rest of the school. I know many of the students really look up to you that are not involved in your program.
Yeah.
Thank all of you once again. Appreciate it. Next, recognition of the PBIS schools, Superintendent Stefanik and Virginia Arrington.
You can let me know when I'm needed. Don't you have a little speech first?
Yeah, but you want to come up and I'll call.
Oh, right away? Okay.
Thanks.
She wants moral support.
That's right. Oh, no, it looks longer than it is. Good evening, Dr. Dobney, Board of Education. Tonight it's my pleasure to talk about the PBIS recognition that's presented through DPI. PBIS is our character education and behavior support that the schools participate in, and there's several components to that. The first one is the tiered fidelity inventory, which is completed by the school level PBIS team. The tiered fidelity inventory, or the TFI, is used to provide a valid, reliable measure of the extent to which school personnel are applying features of PBIS. And it provides data that can be used to guide implementation and sustained use of PBIS. The next component is the school-wide evaluation tool, or the SET. That is completed by outside personnel and involves school-level administration, teachers, and students. The SET is designed to assess PBIS across the school year, and the results are used to assess features that are in place, determine annual goals, evaluate ongoing implementation efforts, design and revise procedures as needed, and compare efforts from year to year. There are 3 levels of recognition: the green ribbon, the model school, and the exemplar school. All recognition levels require active administration, a school-level PBIS team, monthly meetings, and an identified school coach. In addition, for green ribbon, some school-level team members must have been trained in Module 1, earned at least a 70% on Tier 1 for the tiered fidelity inventory, and earned a minimum of 80% on the school-wide evaluation tool. This year, we have 5 schools that earned green ribbon, and they are Currituck County High School, Griggs Elementary, Jarvisburg Elementary, Knott's Island Elementary, and Shawboro Elementary.
All right, green ribbon schools. Scoot together. All right, on 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Okay. Additional criteria for model school recognition are that school-level team members must have been trained in Modules 1 and 2, earned at least a 75% on Tier 1 and an 80% on Tier 2 of the tiered fidelity inventory, and earned a minimum of 90% on the school-wide evaluation tool. And we have 3 schools that are model schools, and they are Central Elementary,
Moyock Elementary. And Currituck Middle School. And I will say that the one criteria that some of the schools have been unable to meet for the exemplar school is that there are 3 modules that the teams have to be trained in, or at least some members of the team. And so module 3 is not offered that often regionally, and so I've been pestering our regional person about when we can do that, when that will be offered. And so hopefully in the next 6 months it will be offered, and then we would have some schools that qualify for exemplar schools. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great job.
Okay, Virginia sat down already. Virginia, could you come back up, please? For the people that do not know what PBIS is the acronym for, it is?
Positive Behavior Intervention and Supports.
Great, thank you. Okay, next item, approval of the agenda. Before I ask for approval, I'd like to delete item G, and that deals with field trips. We didn't have any that Mark had to approve. Do I have a motion for approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Did we have anybody sign up for the public comment session? Okay, so we'll skip that. Next, student board member reports. Jenna, Tyler, Colin, and Keelan.
Thank you, Board. This week from Moyock Elementary, today we welcome back students after the snowstorm. Our Student of the Month luncheon will be on Thursday, January 25th at 11 a.m. Our grades 3 through 5 awards program will be February 1st at 8:30 a.m. The kindergarten through 2nd grade awards will also be on February 1st at 10 a.m. From Central Elementary, this week we are hosting the Mobile Dentist. On February 1st, we will host our 1st and 2nd grade music program at 6:30 p.m. February 9th, we'll have a school-wide science day. From Griggs Elementary, Griggs Elementary has been hosting a mobile dentist clinic today and will resume tomorrow from 8 to 2. Class pictures will take place on Friday, January 19th. And I'll hand it over to Keelan.
So from Knott's Island Elementary, so we here at Knott's Island are having a chilly start. We are happy to celebrate Martin Luther King Jr. Day and look forward to the students coming back after this cold winter break. And then next to Currituck County Middle. So on January 25th, okay. On January 25th, JP Knapp is coming to visit our 8th graders. And on January 30th, JP Knapp will be holding an 8th grade parent information night at 6 p.m. at CCMS. And then I pass it on to Tyler.
Good evening, Board. Tonight I'll be covering Currituck County High, Strawboro Elementary, and Moyock Middle. At Currituck County High, we are preparing for the end of the fall semester. Exams will begin on Monday, January 22nd, and will end on Friday, January 26th. From Moyock Middle, Happy New Year to you from Moyock Middle faculty and staff. With the new year upon us and a restful winter break, we are excited about supporting 35 FBLA student members as they compete this Saturday, January 13th, at Currituck County High School in the Eastern Region competitive event. During this time, students will perform various tasks, such as public speaking and career-based assessments, to demonstrate knowledge in these areas. Winter sports kick off their conference play next week. We are looking forward to celebrating student success as the end of the marketing period approaches. With the support of our parent-teacher organization, students who earn A Honor Roll and AB Honor Roll will be recognized. MMS is hosting Bulldog Technology Parent Night on January 16th at 6 p.m. in the Media Center. Teachers will facilitate sessions on Google Drive, PowerSchool, and Parent Portal. These topics were chosen based on a school-wide survey that was sent to families. We are looking forward to an evening of learning. Finally, from Shawborough Elementary, we had a wonderful holiday break and are looking forward for the weather to warm up. We were out of school to celebrate Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And with that, I pass it over to Colin.
Hello, Board. I will be covering J.P. Knapp Early College and Jarvisburg Elementary. From J.P. Knapp, we have COA classes have started off with a bang. J.P. Knapp classes have also started off after the long wait for the snow to melt, and we are looking forward to another great semester. From Jarvisburg, we had a great holiday break, and we'll be out of school for Martin Luther King Jr. Day on January 15th and a teacher work day on January 26th. Thank you, and that is all we have today.
Great. Thank you. Next item, approval of the 2016-17 fiscal year audit report. Pete Catalfamo.
Good evening. I'm Pete Catalfamo. Our firm did the financial and compliance audit last year, and I'd like to just briefly review the highlights of the audit report, beginning on page 9. Pages 9 through 11 are the independent auditor's report on the financial statements, and our report last year was an unmodified opinion on your financial statements, which is the highest opinion that the board could achieve. Next page, page 25. This is a balance sheet of your governmental funds. The first column is your general fund, which is your current expense fund. And at the bottom third of that page, it shows your fund balance at June 30, 2017, and it indicates that you've appropriated $821,352 to the current school year budget, and you have an unassigned remaining fund balance of $852,610. The next page, page 26, the first column is your general fund, and the bottom half of that page, or the third to last line item on that page, shows your change in fund balance. Your fund balance in your current expense fund decreased by $752,783. On page 77, there was one financial statement compliance finding last year dealing with school deposits. We tested 50 transactions, and we noted that 4 transactions had not been timely deposited. This is a continuing audit finding, but the school management did inform us that they had visited the schools and they found these findings as well. Page 78 and 79. We note on page 78 that there were no federal award findings, and on page 79 there were no state award findings. On page 81, it's the summary schedule of prior year audit findings. The first 4 paragraphs all deal with the individual school deposits, and the last 2 items we note that findings 2016-002 and finding 2016-003 from the prior year had been corrected. There are 2 handouts that the board should have. These contain some required communications that we must present to the board. The first handout is our letter of observations and suggestions, and we note in this report that for the current school year, your audit of major and state programs will have more audit coverage due to the uniform guidance that was implemented back in 2016. And we also note that the board's employees and staff were very polite and helpful to us during the audit process. Pages 2 through 4 contain bookkeeping adjustments that we proposed to management to correct your accounting records, and management did post and correct, review all the adjustments that we proposed. Pages 5 through 10, we are required to request representations for management as a standard of the audit. This is the representations that management presented to us, and we note in here that management performed their responsibilities dealing with the required non-audit services that we provided. There are 2 pages to this attachment, pages 11 and 12, that are just for board members. This report to the board discusses significant audit findings, qualitative aspects of accounting practices. We note that we encountered no significant difficulties in dealing with management in performing and completing our audit. We noted that there were no uncorrected misstatements, that management had corrected all the misstatements that we had identified and proposed adjustments to. We note that there were no disagreements with management. We acknowledge that management provided certain representations to us. We note that as far as we were understood, that management did not have any communications with other independent accountants. We note other audit findings and issues on page 12, other matters. And the last handout, every 3 years, this is a report on our firm's system of quality control. Every 3 years, our firm is required to have a peer review of our accounting and auditing practice. And if we get that peer review report when we're performing the audit, we are required to present it to the board. This is the report that we receive. There are 3 ratings that our firm could receive as a result of our peer review, and our firm received the highest rating. Finally, I wanted to mention that this year, there's a new accounting principle. It's a pretty significant accounting principle. It will result in more accounting, more financial reporting, and more auditing. And that principle has to be implemented in the current fiscal year, the fiscal year ending June 30, 2018. Does anybody have any questions?
I do.
Sure, sir.
So going back to page 13, and it starts talking about, I guess the second paragraph halfway down the page, overview of financial statements, and it goes on. Basically, somewhere in here, I thought it indicated where you gave an opinion as to your opinion as to the status of the Currituck's school's finances. I'm trying to find that.
Oh, sir, page 13 is a management discussion. That's a presentation of management. Our opinion begins on page 9.
Okay, that very well could be. I apologize.
That's okay, sir. If you look at pages 9 through 11, our independent audit report on your financial statements. And on page 10, under the caption opinions, we note that in our opinion, the financial statements referred to on the preceding page are presented fairly in all material respects, basically in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. That's the essence of that paragraph. That's the unmodified opinion that the board received on its financial
There was some
statements.
language, I read this previously, not necessarily all tonight, but there was some language, and I'm sorry I don't have it highlighted, but it was talking about, hold on, it made some economic statements, and it went on to talk about what your company's opinion or finding was of our financial position. I think it's on 20, Currituck Schools.
On 81, Will, is that what you're referring to?
Say again?
Are you referring to page 81?
No, I'm looking on 20 now, and I'm seeing part of it. Okay, it starts off with economic factors, and there's a lot of discussion leading up to this. And I'm seeing this one where it says Currituck County Schools is in good financial position at the end of the current fiscal year.
Yeah, Mr. Carter, pages 13 through 20, that's management's discussion analysis. That's a management document.
Okay.
We don't audit the management discussion
Okay.
analysis. Those pages are not audited.
All right.
Let's see. I think if you look.
So you're
at-
saying that this stuff I'm talking about, okay, I see it now, was prepared by Ms. Trussell, and this is just a
Yes, sir. Our responsibility regarding that report is on page 10.
Okay.
Under other matters, the management discussion analysis is called required supplementary information. And we note in the last sentence of that paragraph, we do not express an opinion or provide any assurance on that information. We don't audit the,
Okay.
it's called the MD&A. We don't audit the management discussion analysis.
Okay, so y'all didn't have an opinion, to make an opinion
We don't
towards
make
that
it, no, sir.
whatsoever?
No,
All
sir.
right.
We don't make an opinion on that. If you
All right.
look, if you read that paragraph.
I see it. I see it now. I do. And so then I guess going on to where I was looking at, I saw where you showed at the end, the 81, where the fund balance was going to be $852 and $852,000 and $610 unassigned.
That's your unassigned fund balance.
Well,
That's-
somewhere in here, prior to that, I saw where it looked like it was in the neighborhood of $4,000 and some dollars prior to that. I'm trying to figure this out.
Well, if you look at, you won't be able to see the unassigned fund balance from the previous year on this document, but if you look at page 26, this will show you the fund balances for the various funds. The beginning fund balance is the second to the last line item, and the last line item is the ending fund balance. And that's where it indicates that you're, in your current expense fund, you started with, in fund balance, $2,452,877, and you ended up between your restricted fund balance, your assigned fund balance, and your unassigned fund balance of $1,700,094. So you had a decrease during the year of $752,783 in your current expense fund balance.
That we're having to use fund balance.
We just wanted to emphasize the change in fund balance, basically because it's been decreasing.
Okay. And somewhere in here I saw where these were the assigned funds, and then there was some language saying that if the funds weren't used, they reverted back. I'm sorry I don't have that, but I'm trying to understand that all the money that is in this budget, except for the $850,000 or $60,000, is it spent, or is it possibly going to come back?
Well, I think maybe, let me give you another page to look at, sir.
Okay.
Look at page 40. This shows the basic definitions of the various fund balances and how fund balances can be used and restricted.
Okay, I've seen a lot of this language previously. I saw somewhere in here where it said that this amount was assigned, but it didn't say this amount was spent. It said assigned, and then it said some language in here about where if it could revert back. And my question is, has there typically, or has money been coming back?
Okay.
Or is it spent? And that's what I'm trying to understand.
Okay. In your state and federal fund, you get grant funds from the state and the federal government. And
Okay.
those unexpended funds do revert back, because if you don't spend them, you lose those funds. So that
Okay.
might be what you're talking about by reverting back. But in the current expense fund, those funds are the school board's funds.
I'm talking about the local fund balance generally.
Yeah, that doesn't,
If
that
that
doesn't
money
revert.
is allocated in the budget and assigned,
Right.
and then somehow at the end of the year, it resurfaces and it ends up in the budget again next year, is that what's going on, or is it not? Is the money getting allocated and then sometimes it gets spent and sometimes it doesn't? Or are we down to $860,000 and that's just the way it is? That's what I'm trying to understand,
Okay.
because as I follow it,
Yeah, let me try to.
Pete, I think I know what the question that Mr. Craddock's asking. I'll try to phrase it a different way and see if I'm hitting what you're asking. When we put the budget for board approval last year in October, October, I think we had appropriated $1.2 million in general fund, out of the fund balance. And we ended up spending whatever the number was in here, 752.
That's correct.
So that additional 400,000 reverts right back into the fund balance. It never leaves the fund balance, and so then it is available to allocate for the next year.
and the spending part, you're just looking at where the money lined up and if we added it up correctly and all that, and I get that. But my thing is, we might end up having more than $860,000 at the end of the year. That's not for necessarily you to tell me, I guess, but that's what my concern is. I'm trying to figure out, did we spend it or did we not spend it? That's what I'm concerned about.
Okay, I think, let's go back to Exhibit A. Page 61, I think this was what Mr. Stepanek was referring to. It'll show that you appropriated fund balance of $1.25 million. That's in the year end in June 30, 2017. Not all of that money was spent, though. You spent $752,000. When you set up your budget, Mr. Craddock, your estimated revenues have to equal your expected expenditures. So when your revenues, there's a deficiency in your estimated revenues for budgetary purposes, that those revenues don't equal or exceed your expected expenditures, you have to appropriate fund balance. And so you're using funds that you currently have for next year's budget. That's when that's how you appropriate fund balance, to make sure your revenues and your expenditures equal. That doesn't mean you have to spend all that fund balance. That might be indicative of management performing well and not using all the funds that you had planned on spending. Okay, now.
That's a fair statement.
Now, the reason I want to highlight fund balance is because on page 26, you started with $2.4 million in fund balance at July 1, 2016. Of that, in last year's budget, you had appropriated to spend $1.25 million of those funds, but you only spent $752,000. But you spent $752,000, so that $2.4 million now is only $1.7 million at the end of June 2017. And in the current year's budget, you're taking that $1.7 million and you're expecting to spend $821,352. That's going to bring your fund balance down even more. Okay?
Assuming we spend it all.
That's right.
And we don't get some back again. Has it been the history since you've been doing this that we allocate it and then it comes back and then we spend a little and then we get some back? Or are we getting down to where we're really getting close to spending it all? That's what I'm trying to understand. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but moving it from one place to the other, for me, I'm just a simple guy. I like to know, at my house, did we spend the money or did we not?
Well, if you look at the past several years, I mean, if you take that we're spending between $750 and $850 on an average, then that's what I would budget for, and that's proven that that's what we're doing. And if we don't, we get it back. But you're not going to get more than $300,000 or $400,000 back at the most.
Well, it's just like this month. I expect the electric bill to be more.
Yes, ma'am. And I
As you know.
unfortunately I do too. But
We talked about that.
I think, Mr. Craddock, I think that you don't, if you appropriate X dollar amount in fund balance to spend in a budget, and you don't spend all that, you don't really get it back. It just means you didn't. That means your fund balance.
I understand that. It's not like we really saved anything. I get it. What I'm trying to understand is that when we go around saying or give the impression that we're down to $860,000 plus or minus, is that a true reflection, or are we really talking about 1.2 million or 500,000, or you know what I'm saying?
Well,
because if we were really saying when we had $2 point some million that we only had $1 million left, or 1.5 million, and then it didn't get spent.
Well, in actuality, you didn't spend all the fund balance that you appropriated spent, which is good because you had to use fund balance to make ends meet, basically, in your budget. It's a budgetary process, but you did spend $752,000 of your fund balance. So you had a loss financially in your current expense fund, your general fund of $752,000. That's not ideal. You really want to break even. So your funds did decrease.
That's why I was wondering about the language that you said you didn't say, or your company didn't present, that said that we were in good financial status. So I'm trying to figure if that's true or not.
Oh, it was at June 30, 2017. I think my point on the budget is if you keep appropriating and spending fund balances, you're not going to have fund balance, okay?
Exactly.
You've only got 1.7.
You're dipping into it every year.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And you
shouldn't be spending as much as on that in
To
the fund
operate.
balance to operate for our expenses. That should be a fund that we have
Emergency.
probably at least 3 years of fund
heat.
balance in that.
Well, what's supposed to happen is fund balance, as a general rule, is not supposed to be used for recurring expenses.
Right.
And to make sure that we keep programs and opportunities for students. Currituck, even before I came to become superintendent, was dipping in to the fund balance to maintain, the school district the current expenses of the type of school district that Currituck is. But you're not supposed to see it drain out every year. That's not a good financial practice.
That's correct. It's better if you broke even. You started at 2.4 million. It'd be better at the end of the year if you had 2.4 million. What you
Pete,
spent.
if you had to guess, when was the last time that you have seen the fund balance this low, projected?
It's been steadily going down. I don't know the
They've
trends.
been with us
I'd have
5
to
years,
go back
I
and
think.
look at that.
You
but-
came on, is it 5 years, 4 years, 5 years ago?
Oh,
Yeah, 5 years.
I appreciate you
think it's
explaining it
been
to me.
going down ever
Well,
since I've been
we probably have difference of opinion as to how much we should be holding on to and all that, because personally, I don't think we should be holding on to $2.5 million if we're not providing enough support services like I talk about. But with that being said, if we got more than 860-some thousand and we're giving the impression to the people that that's all we got, I'm concerned about that too.
Are you saying that the money we've got more of is what's been allotted? We're planning to spend it. Is that what you're talking about?
I'm talking about that.
It's already been appropriated.
Yeah,
some
but
of this
just because
money.
it's been appropriated, just like the gentleman said, that there's been years we've appropriated and it comes back into the next year's budget because it doesn't all get spent. I'm
It
concerned
does,
about
but like we appropriated, 1.25, and we spent 752,000. So, that's good for us, but we appropriated on the high end, which is always good, and what I try to do in my household budget, and hopefully you don't spend it all. So,
But what we
And as-
appropriated this year for electric and heating is probably going to be under. So we'll have to take from something else.
Not if I know Ms. Trussell, it won't be under. Yeah.
Use that as an example. That's one area that I have no control over how much those bills are going to be.
Exactly.
And with this last week,
Yeah.
I expect we're going to use our utility
Right.
budget this year. I always hope that we don't. I hope we have a mild winter. I hope we have a mild summer. There are certain things that I'm budgeting for that I don't have control over, and the utility bills are a large portion of the local budget.
And because we're into the fund balance, pretty much every discussion and decision we have about finances is how can we save money? And so we don't have just the checkbook out and just writing, check, because we're into the fund balance. If we were operating at status quo, then you can maybe use the fund balance for special one-time projects. We don't have those options here. So when we put out 1.2, that is the absolute most that we want to use out of the fund balance, and our goal is to try to chip that number down. And the years that I've been here, I know Ms. Trussell and the administrators have done a nice job of, cutting cost, or at least maintaining cost at the lowest level possible, so that we do come in under, what the budgeted amount was.
I have a question about the non-compliance and the money being turned in late.
Right.
And just speaking from experience, I know that sometimes money gets turned in late in the day at the school. Is that what's happening here? Is that why we're having this?
Generally, yeah, it's a mixture it's a combination of various factors.
I know sometimes parents will come in to pick up kids and turn in field trip money after money's already been picked up.
Well,
that sort of thing.
And then just logistics of the fact that where our schools are and where the banks are.
Right. There's several things involved in that, but as a footnote, and Pete, tell me if I'm wrong here, but I think the number last year on this item was we had 9 late transactions, and this year we're down to 4 because Lori and her staff are actually doing, I'll call them mini audits, for lack of a better term. They're going to school sites, all 10 of them, and checking out how they're doing and making sure they're being timely with their deposits. And so they have more than cut in half this year.
Yeah, we did note a decrease in the findings in that area.
And I know the schools push for that, and I know they tell the teachers, and I know teachers turn in the money. But sometimes it's beyond their control when money comes in at 3:00 from a parent, and they've already picked up the deposit for the day. So,
Sir, did you also say that there's some new auditing criteria coming forward?
There's a new accounting principle that the management must implement in the year ending June 30, 2018. That accounting principle is going to result in more accounting and more financial reporting at management level, and that additional financial reporting will have to be audited too. So it's a threefold increase in because of the new standard.
Is that a requirement put forward by the state, I'm presuming? Or
I'm sorry, what?
Is that a requirement that the state put forward? Or
No, sir. It's a requirement of the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. Your financial statements, for reporting purposes, you have to follow the standards that are promulgated by the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. They've adopted a new principle.
Okay.
And
For the
all
county.
governments have to follow that new principle.
I see. Yes, sir.
Okay. They set the standards for financial reporting, not the state.
Very good. Thank you.
Any other
Okay,
questions?
before you sit down, tell them once again what your opinion was.
Our opinion on your financial statements was an unmodified opinion, which is the highest opinion that the board could receive.
Okay.
Thank you.
thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, now I'm going to ask for approval of the audit report. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion on it? Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes.
Dr. Dominic, can I make a comment real quick? With that determination from Mr. Catalfamo and his auditing firm, I'd just like to recognize Ms. Trussell and her department because all the work that they do is what results in this kind of an audit finding. So congratulations to them and thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and this was on top of how many budgetary changes did the state send us last year? Was it 70 or 80?
I think we almost hit 60 budget changes in state funding. Yes.
Okay. All right, next item, 2017-18 Currituck County Schools calendar revisions. Superintendent Stefanik.
A little FYI, if people haven't noticed, we've missed a few days of school here lately. Had a little bit of ice and snow and cold temperatures. Did the calculation. The number that we have to keep in mind is 1,025 hours. That's the state requirement for the amount of time that school needs to be open, or 185 days. With our original calendar and where we take breaks during the year at Christmas time and spring break and Thanksgiving, it was extremely difficult with the calendar restrictions of when we're allowed to start and when we have to finish with students to even get to 185 days. And so for the past several years, we've been targeting the 1,025 hours rather than the 185 days. With all the time off to date, we had a day off in, can't remember if it was early October or late September when the hurricane came through. We had 4 full days right now. We had a 2-hour early release right before the 4 days off, and we had a 2-hour late start today. So with all that being said, we are down to 1,020.75 hours. Again, going back to 1,025, we are now below the state minimum on the way the calendar is set up right now. So put an equal sign, that equals makeup days. We have to get ourselves back to the 1,025, and we have to put in a buffer because it's only January the 10th. And so we've got some time left where some tricky winter weather can come in, and then we have the spring and whatever the direction the wind's blowing and whatever kind of storms might crank up in the springtime. We've got to make sure that we can maintain that 1,025. Yes, and actually had that last night. Fog can be a couple-hour delay in any given morning. And so since we're on the hours, everything we do is an addition or subtraction problem based on hours. So late starts, early dismissals, all that impacts our grand total. So the proposal right now, and you have a little handy-dandy calendar that was given to you today. This is our current calendar, and the recommendation is to don't mean to take the student board report and make it inaccurate, but I'd like to take the January 26th workday, turn that into a school day, and take the 3 early release days, 1 in February and 2 in March, and make those full school days. When we do that, that adds in roughly 14.75 hours into the calendar, and that takes us up in the ballpark of 1,035. So then we're 10 hours over the state minimum, and we can use that as a starting point. Then we have only 2 early release days left on the calendar. And again, as a footnote, we're pretty much talking about elementary and middle school. Our 2 high schools with their 4.5-day student week and their professional development afternoons on Fridays, they can turn Fridays into full days, and they can make up hours as they would need it. And so I'll put that into my recommendation. Just say high schools will just turn in dates to the superintendent on when they're going to make up time and communicate those to the parents, and they'll track their own hours. This is pretty much elementary and middle schools. So we do that now. Then we have 2 early release days, and don't shoot the messenger. After that, we may have to consider spring break days. Now, one thing I checked with the attorneys today, another option that is out there is to modify the daily schedule, i.e., if we add 15 minutes to a half an hour to the schedule from now till the end of the year, if you do a half an hour, you can pick up a lot of hours. Just say we have 90 days and you put a half an hour in there, quick math, you've added 45 hours to, your schedule. I don't think we have to go that extreme yet, but if we get to a point where we might be looking at vacation time or, again, don't shoot the messenger, Saturdays, we might look at, instead of the school day ending at 2:30, maybe the school day ends at 2:45, or instead of the school day ending at 3:30, maybe the school day ends at 3:45. And if we pick up minutes turn into hours, and then we meet the state criteria that way. And they leave the hours in any given day in the school calendar. That's a local board's decision. So if we would modify that, all we have to do here is modify it as a board action, and we could look at that if and when we run out of a remaining early release days.
How would that affect Knott's Island with the ferry?
We'd have to check. We might be in better shape now because they just changed the ferry schedule.
Okay.
And they put the afternoon ferry at 3:45 instead of 3:30.
Okay.
So we were rushing to get to the 3:30 one anyways. And so if they put it at 3:45, and again, the high school, they're probably not going to have to do this modified because they've got the Fridays they can use as minutes and hours. Middle school and high school, or middle school and elementary school using this new schedule.
Well, if we turn the 26th into a school day, how many days or hours does that give us for the first semester as opposed to second?
When we started the calendar, I'll go on days on this because it's easier. When we started the calendar, we ended up with 92 days in the first semester and 88 days in the second semester. So now you've missed, 5 days in the first semester, and that would just be one makeup day. So that would almost flip it. It would take the first semester down to 88 days, and the second semester would be closer to, it actually wouldn't be 92 because we've got a couple of non-days that are going to be in there. So it might be 88 and 89 and 90. So they'll still be close, but we are dropping off the original 92 from the beginning of the year.
Mark, anything from the state as far as forgiveness? Because I know the storm was widespread. Any news?
Not yet. I haven't had any information on that. If we would get that information and they say we can excuse some days, then I would come back immediately to the next board meeting and say we can keep these early releases for teacher planning and teacher professional development rather than using them for makeup time.
I think the General Assembly, aren't they going back to Raleigh next week?
Today.
Today they were there.
Today.
Yeah. I didn't see where they were going to take any emergency, actions on their agenda, but I guess they can modify their agenda when they got there because of what just happened.
If we just take that one work day in January, that would pretty much put us back in the ballpark with the minimum. I just hate to add all of this and change all of this if we don't get bad weather anymore. I know you like to have a cushion, but we will have more meetings.
Yeah.
We have another meeting coming up.
That is true. The only thing I would say to that is once you pass those days, then you don't have them to use anymore. And then we are closer to using the extended school day or the Saturday question. If you put some things in there and then the very next day you miss, you're not back down below 1,025, then I think you're operating in a better position. But it's up to the board.
And I think we need to get some input from staff if at all possible. I know some staff members were asked today to go in and turn in leave request for the couple of days we missed last week.
That's a technical type of thing, and we're going to talk about that differently because I heard some feedback on that as well. We're going to talk about the different options that we have.
What is that? What is the policy on that, or what is the ruling on that? If you close school and say nobody can come,
they have to take
well, it's what you do is you have options. You can either take annual leave, or you substitute the day and then you put the teacher day at the end of the year, and then the teachers would have the same option: either come in and work the work day in the second or third week of June,
contracted for 200 days, right?
Yes, 250 2:15.
15.
2:15.
And
Yes.
I understand they have to work, but I do also realize in this day and age, lots of folks work from home, and I know our teachers are included in that. Is that an option? If they're working from home, working on plans?
We are checking on policy on that. We're seeing if other school districts have enacted that, and what would have to happen is we'd have to make it, a policy action, from the board level for that to move on. We've done it on individual basis. For example, this past storm, there were some roads where people just couldn't get in, and so they could do some work online, and then they would have to turn in documentation that they were actually completing schoolwork at home.
And if that's an option for some, I really think we need to look at it being an option for.
Well, that's the policy piece, is to actually create a system-wide approach, to that. And so instead of being on an individual case-by-case basis, then it would be an option for everybody.
Can you take a day when nobody can get here and turn it into a non-day?
Yes. And that was actually the recommendation for last Thursday, was a non-day, and so that is an option. Then what happens is the teacher workday then kicks to the end of the school year.
So then they wouldn't need to take leave for last Thursday if it was a non-day.
Right. Any day you designate as a non-day, they don't have to take leave, but then the leave question just comes up in the summer. Mm-hmm. When that workday comes up, then they decide whether to work or whether to take the annual leave day then.
So tonight, are you recommending the 26th and then February of the two
14.
early release days for February and March? Is that
Three.
all you're
Three.
recommending?
Right?
Three.
Three.
So it'd be February 14th, it'd be March 23rd, and March 30th. Now, the last one, just so you know, March 30th is the early release day to kind of jumpstart spring break. That's why that one's there. And the board would have to determine whether or not, to maintain that tradition.
Can you tell me about the early release Friday at the high school and how that was going to be made up again? Because I didn't quite follow that. I see we're going to take possibly 3 early release days. 2 of them are on Fridays already. Out of the 4 days we're considering changing, which personally I don't have a problem with, because if we get there and we didn't have bad weather, we can change them back.
Right.
But I'm concerned that the high school already had early release on Friday.
Right.
And so the one day was a work day, it was a Friday,
right.
And then 3 of the 4 days are on Fridays.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, 3/4 of the change won't impact the high school.
No, it could.
How?
The high school in Knapp, they could declare any Friday. They have early release on every single Friday, and so they could declare any Friday a full day of school, and they could pick up hours.
Well, why don't we do that alongside of what we're doing right now? Why? I don't understand.
We are.
High school's taken January 12th and 19th, the 2 Fridays leading up to exams, because we've missed, for the high school, it's totally different in that I need the hours back in the same semester I've lost them. Those teachers need to see the contact after those kids, because they're testing in a week and a half on their exams.
So you've already.
So the next 2 Fridays, the 12th and the 19th, are full Fridays for the high school, when typically they would be early release.
So they're
Okay,
already.
well, that's the first I heard of that.
Yes.
And I'm saying, well, I'm up here trying to figure this out, and I could have sworn just a minute ago, with all due respect, that you said it'll be left up to the parents to monitor it and this and that, and I'm going.
No, the principals.
Oh, the principals. Okay, I missed something here, and I don't understand. If we're having to adjust the schedule, how come the part about the high school wasn't a discussion? And if the high school can change their days, how come the elementary schools can't change their days? Why are we even talking about it if they can just do it?
The elementaries don't have, the only options the elementary and middle school have are the early release days and the work days that are listed on this calendar.
Adjusting the calendar, so the parents have to be notified of the calendar being adjusted.
Well, then why wouldn't the high school parents need to be notified?
Have been.
No, they and they will. The high school principals will turn into me when they're going to do the makeup. I'll approve that, and then we'll send it out to the parents.
Okay.
But this is the calendar that functions for everybody else.
Except
It's
two
a
high
calendar that, okay. Well,
And in addition to that, we're already over our hours. We are not at the 1,020, below the 1,025. Both high schools are still above the 1,025 right now, even with those days missed.
Because y'all were doing more hours.
Yes.
Right,
We started with more.
right, and in the youngers, they lose instructional time based on the extended lunch recess block that they have, and the high schools don't have that, and so they have more minutes every day, so they have more hours on the year.
So you're saying if we don't have bad weather, you'll give back those early release days?
Almost definitely, yeah. If we're settling in, from what folks tell me down here, February can be a tricky month as far as weather goes. If we can get through February and still be, above 1,030, knock on wood, we should be in pretty decent shape to finish out the year.
Well, the worst snow we ever had
March
since I've been
of
here
80.
was March.
1st.
1980.
1980, yeah.
Well, I know, in the northern half of the United States, you watch all the way through March. I didn't know if you had to watch all the way through March down here. Guess you do.
Well, I think probably the only one I'm concerned about is the early release on March 30th,
Yeah.
simply because it's the travel situation.
Good Friday.
In Currituck, as far as the beach traffic. So, I think maybe it would be nice if we did the January 26th and the early release February 14th and the early release on the 23rd, and then see how we do on that one, and we can make that change either, if the 1st of March, if we see that it's really bad.
I know the one on the 23rd, early release, grading period ends.
Mm-hmm.
And I know the teachers have a lot to do with report cards and what have you. So if the weather will hold out, I certainly would like to give them back those early release days.
Well, if we lose one of those, we still stay in the 1,030s. If we lose both of them, then we don't.
Then we're back.
Go for that.
Yeah.
Take that one then.
What one?
That's the one we just put in. That's election day, or primary day, I guess. That's what you would call it. And so
Every one of the schools is open for
two of them.
And we shut down the whole system over 2 schools.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
And we've gone to school during those times. It's a good learning opportunity. I always used it as a good learning opportunity when I taught elementary. Is it just
I was
Moyock and
Moyock and Knapp, yes, and Moyock.
Shawborough's used for voting.
Yeah, they are.
And
Yeah, they
Knott's
are.
Island is.
No.
Yes, they are.
Knott's Island's not.
And so is Griggs.
Scarborough is?
Oh, they voted to
So is
Riverton.
Griggs. There's more than 2.
Community Center, the
Okay.
Riverton Park.
Yeah, Griggs, Shawborough, Moyock, JP Knapp.
Okay, the one I keep hearing about is Moyock, that the most concerns are about traffic, parking capacity,
Well, it's parking
number
capacity more than
of
anything
people, number of people in and out of the building, during the day. That's where the concerns were raised, and I was presented with that by the election commission when I came here.
Well, we may not have a choice, but right now we do,
Mhm.
so.
Are you making a motion?
Yeah.
What's your motion?
Let me rephrase it again, just so everybody's clear. This calendar, we actually have 3 different calendars. We have this one that covers K through 8. We have a JP Knapp early college calendar, and then this year, when the board approved the high school going to the half-day Fridays, we have a Currituck High School calendar. The high school calendar and the Knapp calendar are in better shape, and they're not on the board tonight. As part of the motion, we could say, if they get in bad shape, if the board's okay with them notifying parents and turning said Fridays into full days, well, I'm just trying to, and so we don't have to keep coming back for board action, because they would just say, we're going to take these 2 Fridays and turn them in and give parents plenty of notice. They can do it right out of their offices. But for K through 8, it would change the general calendar. So the motion is K through 8. That's the header for the
thank you.
motion. Okay.
So my motion is that the K through 8 calendar, that we take the January 26th workday, the February 14th early release day, and the Friday, March 23rd early release, and make those full days of school.
And give them back if.
And I'm not going there.
I'll
We'll give
second
them
that.
back.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Okay, and once again, that's for Friday, the 26th of January, February 14th, and March 23rd.
Yes.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes.
So just as a number, will be somewhere around 1,032 hours instead of 1,035 with that change.
And you are going to check on that leave requirement?
Yes,
Okay.
the technical pieces we will check with and work that out.
Okay.
And if the state does anything, that would be great.
That too, yeah. So as soon as we hear about that, if we,
Lot on
Yeah,
that.
I think I remember the year we had this hurricane, that they didn't change anything, and it was days.
We missed 11 days one year I was superintendent for hurricanes, and they did forgive a couple of those days.
yeah. Last year, I think what they did is, I think they said if you missed 5 or more days, then you could ask for forgiveness, and I think we missed 2 or 3, and so we were below, and we could get the forgiveness piece in there.
Okay, next item on the agenda, first reading of 2017 fall policy updates.
As the board has become accustomed to, twice a year, the North Carolina School Boards Association goes through any changes that were in state law and makes sure that their policies or their policy recommendations to local boards of education match up with state law. This year, in all these policies, there really isn't a major change to any policy language that changes the intent of the policy, except for 2 that we were notified of. One, you've already been in compliance with, was the creation of a business advisory council, and it has to be approved and in place before January 1st. You already did that. And the last one, and it's actually not on this list because we're still doing study on it. There is a new provision for teacher contracts that it gives the board the option to set up different tiers of length of teacher contracts. So instead of just the annual 1-year contract, you could have 1-year contracts, 2-year contracts, or 4-year contracts. And there were 3 or 4 different ways you could set that up. The recommendation from the State Superintendents Association was to at least regionally have a discussion and see if districts can be more alike than different. Otherwise, it becomes another we'll call it bargaining chip or lure for some districts. So if some districts are offering 4-year contracts and other districts are sticking with the way it is, 1-year contracts, then people could go, look, we're offering 4-year contracts down here, and you could lose some teacher staff to other districts. So they said to eliminate the competition, that if districts, at least regionally, if they could be more alike than different, then that would probably be a positive for the profession and for schools in general. And so we have that as an agenda item at our regional superintendent's meeting, and the head of that is already polling the other regions in the state to see what the recommended direction is for the teacher contracts. And so we'll bring that up again in February, and if we do that first read then, second read in March, we don't offer contracts till May, and so there's still plenty of time to kick the new policy in action.
So that's the first reading, all those policies?
Yes, this is first read, and so if any questions come up over this month, feel free to reach out and ask, and then when we get to the second read next month, we'll put them up for adoption.
The next item, item K, adoption of 2017 fall policy update, technical changes only.
Yes, this is truly technical changes. So they might add an adjective, they may clarify a phrase, and the policy in in fact, didn't change at all. It was just some phrasing somewhere in the policy, but the way the district would proceed with that policy is exactly the same. And so that's why these technical changes, it's, changing an if to a then or whatever. It's those kind of simple changes. In one of them, there was another group added. So instead of notifying just parents and students, it would say parents, students, and community members. And it's those types of changes. But as far as changes in actions, they're minimal to none in these technical corrections only. Policies.
Okay, and that takes action. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on any of those? Okay. Have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Now we have item L, adopt revision to policy 7440, assignments, reassignments, and transfers.
Yes, this policy is put here. We actually had a mini discussion about it last board meeting about the posting of vacancies, and this has language in it just to line up with that other policy you acted on last month that says that first and foremost, all positions are posted, and then folks have a chance to apply. These two policies go together, and we're just lining the two of them up.
Okay. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on that policy? Okay, since there's no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Janet just wanted to make a request at this time on policy or discussion for the next work session.
Yep. I've had a couple of phone calls on really bad bullying, so I'd like for us to review our bullying policy.
Okay.
I also had the opportunity to talk with Matt Bikert. I know that they have a program that they can come and do with their students, and I think they've got something in place with freshmen, rising freshmen, to talk about the bullying. But I asked him what he could do with their middle school kids, and he said he'd be more than happy to do something
Fantastic.
with 6th grade and 7th and 8th.
Great.
At both middle schools, so I'd like for us to reach out to him.
Fantastic.
They incorporated that in the drug program that they did for the elementary kids, but that was only 3rd, 4th, and 5th, I believe, because I went to several of those programs, and he had a small portion of it that was about bullying. But I agree with you. I think we need to step it up.
We've had a couple of serious incidents that we've been notified about, or I've been notified about. And so I just think if we can talk about, the policy and what happens to students that are doing the bullying.
Perfectly fine.
Okay.
I've had several calls about it myself. I think it would be great. If we're talking about what we're going to want to add to the work session agenda, by chance?
Yeah, if it's open.
That'll be
Yeah.
on the next work session. Or the
Okay,
next
can
board
I
meeting.
add something to the work session too?
Dr. Domney?
Could I?
Mr. Craddock said he has a question too.
I'd like to have a better understanding of Engage Math New York and the math resources that we have available for the teachers at the elementary school. And I'd like some clarity on that.
Okay.
Perfect. No problem.
Okay. My microphone keeps walking away here. Okay, next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Do I have a motion for approval?
I got a question. We got a lot of stuff on there. Where are the closed session meeting minutes?
It should be on the electronic copy, right?
Okay. All right. Very good.
Is that correct, Yvette?
Yes, they're posted.
Okay.
So I need to talk with you about that. All right.
Okay, do I have a motion for approval of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, item passes. Next, information items. Next work session and Board of Education meeting. We've had a request that we move the board meeting date since Karen will be out of town then. And I would like to see, can we have that on February 8th? And the commissioners' meeting room here will be open, Yvette, on Thursdays? Yes.
Board of Adjustments.
Well,
Any other day that week, Yvette, open?
I will check with the, with the, commissioner's clerk, but when I inquired about it, the availability of this room is the first and third Tuesdays and any Wednesdays.
Oh, any Wednesdays, wow.
Well, the first Tuesday would be fine.
I thought she said.
you're going to be back on the 6th? Is that okay with everybody?
Would that work?
Did you say Tuesday? Oh, okay, that's
It'll be February 6th.
That's fine.
Okay, we'll schedule the next work session for 4 o'clock over in the Knapp Professional Learning Center on the 6th, Tuesday the 6th, and next board meeting here on Tuesday the 6th at 6:30. Okay, next, board member and superintendent comments. I'll start with Ms. Etheridge.
Yeah, I had a chance to go to a couple of the schools during the holidays. I attended Central Elementary School's holiday program. Everybody was so excited to participate in that. And they were, I think, even more excited to be out of school for the Christmas holiday. The chorus concert at Currituck County High School was absolutely wonderful, and I enjoyed that as well. I hope everyone had a safe and happy holiday season, and I'm hoping everybody's been safe during this snowstorm that was very unexpected, and look forward to 2018. Thank you.
Ms. Kraft?
Yes, I also visited 4 of our elementary schools for Christmas programs. Moyock Elementary School, I was looking back over that, and I've only missed 2 in the past 30 years, but it always starts Christmas off for me, so it was really good. Went to Knott's Island Elementary School's Christmas program, and then also went to sing-along at Central Elementary and Shawborough Elementary School. I also want to thank all of you for your phone calls, your texts, your cards, and your emails at my husband's recent death. And I ask that you continue to keep me in your thoughts and prayers, because I'm going to need it. Thank you.
Ms. Rose?
Well, I made my rounds to some of the programs too. Hated that I had to miss a few due to conflicts, but, I went to Knott's Island and Moyock and Shawborough, and there was, Central. I went to the sing-along, and that one was like being back at home after having taught there for 23 years. It was so magical. I hated that I missed some of them. Some of them I didn't know about because they weren't on the calendar like that I looked at. And I talked to Mr. Stefanik about that, and I know how busy teachers are, but if you could just send us an email telling us what's going on if it's not on the calendar, we'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Craddock?
Yes, I attended the Christmas program at Knott's Island Elementary also, and I had a really good time. I took my 2 boys and had a Merry Christmas, and I hope everybody else did, and been playing Stay Warm in the blizzard. Anyhow, I hope everybody has been safe and gets a happy, successful 2018 going. And I'd like to say, God bless Currituck County, and thank you.
Hey, Mr. Stefanik?
Thank you, Dr. Dobney. I always question whether to start pointing to different people and thanking them for things, but after this winter storm, and especially with today, I think there are 2 groups that have to be recognized. First and foremost, our bus drivers. We got a good report from the Department of Transportation yesterday. We didn't get a great report, but we got a good report, and we made the decision to start with a 2-hour delay. Always worry about decisions like that because you know that there's still a patch of ice over here and there's maybe a patch of ice over there, and we found out that some of the private developments are apparently not state-maintained roads, and so it's up to each development on how much time they put on their streets, and but state-maintained or not, our buses go in and pick up the students, and then as luck would have it, it dropped just below 32 last night, and so we had a little bit of refreezing. And so early morning this morning, it was still a lot of white knuckle time, a lot of phone calls, a lot of texts trying to make a determination. And we just asked the bus drivers just to take their time. Don't put themselves on a time clock. Just take your time and get to school. And everybody made it to school, not necessarily on time, but everybody made it to school safely. And I just like to commend the bus drivers for taking a less than perfect morning as far as road conditions went and getting us a chance to get school started today. With that being said, nobody has any idea about how much work the maintenance department did during the storm. They were coming in with emergency calls with either heating systems going down. We had a couple of water pipes break because they froze, and then they snapped, and they were doing troubleshooting right up until the end of the day yesterday to make sure that our buildings were ready. Biggest concern and probably the biggest repair, Knott's Island lost a water pump, and Knott's Island has its own little water system out there, and not as luck would have it, as planning would have it, we had a spare pump, didn't have to go locate one. Maintenance department hauled it over there, replaced the pump, and got the system back in action yesterday afternoon so that they could start school today. And so a lot of people pulled together to make this school district run, but during the storm, maintenance department during the storm, and bus drivers getting our students safely to school today so we could get back on the school day track.
I saw 3 of our maintenance crew shoveling snow over at the White House, and I said, wouldn't it be a lot easier if you just purchased a flamethrower and melted it? So I don't know if that'll be in the budget or not. But
I'll probably ask for it.
yeah. Anyway,
Qualifies for capital outlay, I think. So,
I think this would be an appropriate time. We always have people questioning time when school is called and that. Would you tell everybody who you check with before making a decision, Mr. Stefanik?
Well, it starts with the National Weather Service, and I'm not trying to be critical of local news stations, but weathermen, they've got a small amount of time in the newscast to give the forecast. But what we do is we dig in deeper than that. We try to go into the actual National Weather Forecast site, and we try to get down to the actual hour when things are going to be happening. And in a county this big, that's not that easy. So we actually call in a report for Knott's Island, we call in a report for the Moyock area, we call in a report for Crawford Township, which is right here in the center of the county, we call in a report for like the Granby area, and then we call in a report for Piles Point and the Harbinger area down by the beach. And so we track all those things, and when we go and make a decision, we've got to check how accurate all those reports are. It's never just my office. We pull together 5 folks from the central office, administration, transportation, maintenance, and then selected cabinet members, and we sit around and we kick around the information that we have, the data, to make sure that it's accurate and we're okay. Post-storm, on a day like today, Department of Transportation, Sheriff's Department, Emergency Management, we check in with all those folks. And I think I got the biggest grumbles in the Facebook world on the very first day that we called off after our 2-hour early release. But it was raining, and they had said that it was going to change to ice at 6 o'clock, and then it changed to 9 o'clock, and then it changed to midnight for some parts of the county. And I don't like to to just go off a forecast. We'd like to have some accurate data that, yes, it has gotten below 32, yes, it is changing over to ice, and so right about 7:30, we got verification from Pitt County that it was supposed to hit Pitt County at 7 o'clock, and it hit Pitt County at 7 o'clock, and so we said, okay, it's coming. And so then that's when we canceled school for last Thursday and made that decision. But there's a lot of data. It's not just based on, when this weatherman on this channel says it's coming, he's always right. We can't just go off of that. And we really try to make it a detailed process so that the students can be safe and the students can get as much school time as they can possibly get. And that's what goes into our decision-making process. So it's not a simple thing. And then when you go to make the announcement and the internet's going in and out, our all-call system is a little slow getting out because sometimes it doesn't accept the message the first time and you have to wait for the internet to come back up and then you can send your message out. So there's a lot of parts to the whole process, and I know other people want it to be quick and they want to make plans as early as possible. I want to give them the decision as early as possible, and so as soon as we know and we're confident about the direction we're taking, we make the call.
And everything is made with student safety as the
First and
most
foremost.
important.
First and foremost.
Thank you. Since the last board meeting, I visited Griggs in Jarvisburg, and I too attended the high school band and chorus programs, and they were both great. Just amazing, how talented our students are. So, and I hope everybody has a great 2018. And with that, do I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, meeting adjourned.